West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
This mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everybody. Wednesday, July 15, and we've got a deal on a nuclear deal with Iran announced by President Obama at the White House yesterday morning, and of course immediately denounced by all the Republican candidates for president, including candidate number 16, Benjamin Netanyahu, who might as well be running for president as a Republican because all he does is think, talk, and act like a Republican against President Obama. This deal the president announced yesterday means that Iran will surrender all of its nuclear bomb-making capacity for at least 10 years, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. That is good news. Again, Republicans are against it, but they provide no alternative except going to war against Iran, which is exactly what they want. Meanwhile, President Obama yesterday up in Philadelphia speaking to the NAACP, talking about his priority, criminal justice reform, where the president is determined to do something about the extreme sentencing received by many nonviolent drug offenders, commuting more of their sentences, reducing the terms of their time in prison, and restoring to them, once they get out of prison, the right to vote. Pluto, now we know a lot more about it. 3 billion miles away, but it came a lot closer thanks to the great work of NASA and our American engineers and scientists and those incredible photos that came back yesterday from the first dwarf planet, or still, some of us still consider it the 9th planet in the solar system. At any rate, a huge triumph. And President Obama will celebrate his recent accomplishments with a news conference at the White House today. We'll talk about all of that right here on the show and take your calls at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends. I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
We have seen Pluto, and it's there, and it's ours. We got the first pictures. Hello, everybody. Nobody landed on it yet. Nobody planted the American flag on it yet. What a great, great mission. New horizons, indeed. Hello, everybody. Talk about New Horizons. That's who we are, New Horizons. We start every day with New Horizons here on the Bill Press Show. First to take a crack at the morning news and bring it to you and talk to you about what it all means. So good to see you today, Wednesday, July 15. How about it? We're right here in the heart of the action, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. The Bill Press Show, there with you on your local progressive talk radio station all across this great land of ours. Hope you're having a good day, starting off as a good day. And thank you for starting your day with all of us here at the Bill Press Show. Bill Press and friends. We're also looking at you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to tell your friends they can reach us. It doesn't matter where they are, on the radio or on TV, on the radio. If you don't have a local progressive talk radio station near you, you can always go to one of the 2 free radio apps. Keep telling you that. You ought to have them all on your electronic device, either TuneIn or iHeartRadio or both, and you'll find us on both. Here we are again in Washington, and the whole team. It's hard in the summer to get the whole team together, because these people take such long vacations all the time, and, you could just...
We're the only ones to take vacation around here.
But everybody's back today for maybe 2 days. Right? So enjoy it. We'll enjoy it. Peter Ogbarron, hello. Welcome back.
Hello, Bill.
You had a good time in Charleston?
I did indeed.
Yes. And how was Ike?
Let me tell you something. I met up with our good friend, our caller, Ike from Charleston, longtime listener, longtime caller. It reiterated the fact that we have some of the smartest, most well-informed listeners and viewers in all of political commentary. He was so on point. We had a couple beers.
Just beer? Are you sure about that?
I was going to say, so you met at the University of South Carolina library in the research,
yes.
in the research
We read the
section.
newspaper together.
But
it's fun. Ike is a very liberal guy in a sea of conservatism that is Charleston, South Carolina.
God bless him. Yeah. All right.
We talked some politics, hung out for a little while.
That's nice to bring some reinforcements down there. At least, last time I went to Chicago, big crowd. I expected Joey to be there. Joey didn't even show up. So I'm glad Ike showed up. Anyhow, Lisa Murphy here as well.
Hey, good morning.
Jamie Benson on the phones, ready to take your calls. And Cyprian Bolding, yes, is back, Peter. I
hardly recognized him when he came in today.
And he's here for just a short visit before his next vacation. But good to see all of you. And I know Peter rushed back last night for the, in his mind, the biggest sports event of the year. Just eclipses the World Cup or the World Series or the Super Bowl, and that is the All-Star game last night. The American League did it with a little help from the second baseman for the Twins, Brian Dozier.
Swing and a ball driven well center field. Pollock back. Pollock racing some more, and that one is gone. Brian Dozier showing off the power. And the American League adds another. It is 6-2. on a home run by the Twins' second baseman.
Final game 6-3. So
Yeah.
it's just a waste of an evening in the season, as far as I'm concerned. But
You know,
anyway.
it's Major League Baseball has an interesting thing, right? They have the home run derby, which is cool.
The
I
night
like
before.
that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the All-Star game. I think it's cool. The thing that bugs me is the fact that now the American League will have home field advantage in the World Series. It will have nothing to do with who has the better record or who had the
Yeah.
better season. So if the Nationals make it
Yeah.
to the
They'll
World
be-
Series, they'll be hosed. They're not going to have home court advantage. They're going to have home field advantage because they're National League.
Yeah, but they will not have home field.
That's what I'm saying. They'll be
right.
hosts because
Yeah.
they won't have it because of this game.
Okay. Host is what threw me, because host to me, it means you host the game.
I meant hosed.
Hosed.
Not host.
I thought
They're going to be hosed. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you came back with that South Carolina
Oh,
dialect.
yeah.
Hey, look, man.
Accent. Oh,
A
so
little
you have to- yeah.
We gonna be all kinds of butthurt.
Now I understand you. All right. What a lot going on here today. I mean, this is the Congressional Democratic Caucus in action today. We actually have not one, not two, but three Democratic members of Congress coming in, all great people. Dan Kildee from Michigan, Jim Hines from Connecticut, and Jackie Speier from California. David Jackson joins us from the White House. He was there at 5 o'clock on duty yesterday for the big Iran announcement. And Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund with the final word on the Iran deal will be in as well. We'll get right to it. But first...
This is the Full Court
no,
Press.
It's not your turn, Peter.
No.
Jamie Benson.
Jamie is going to pick it up again?
Yeah, Jamie has. Didn't you know that you've been replaced
Oh, man.
while you were gone?
You got to up your game, Peter.
I'll never
That's-
take any time off again.
I know, that's the problem. When you take time off, you come back and
Someone
Tables have
younger,
turned.
smarter, prettier, takes my place.
that's what happens.
While you were sleeping, you might have missed out on a huge deal, Bill. Best Buy's website had a presumed glitch. We don't know exactly what happened, but they were selling gift cards on their website, $200 gift cards for only $15. They think it was a technical glitch, or it might have just been a short-term stunt. The website Reddit was quick to pick up on the glitch, and they pointed it out. A lot of people ran to Best Buy's website and bought them.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, this happened in the wee hours of the morning.
And if you did, it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
They will honor it as of now because that's exactly how they advertised it, but they quickly fixed the problem. But we're not sure how many people got a hold of it and how many people got the deal, but there you go.
Too late?
You snooze, you lose. It's too late. They fixed it. It's down. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry. You're there. The actor Leonardo DiCaprio announced yesterday that he has funded $15 million in grants to environmental conservation organizations
Good for him.
across the world. He has a foundation, the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, and he's been very big on environmental issues for a long time, but he is officially putting his money where his mouth is, again, to the tune of $15 million.
Wow, he's been on the Hill quite a bit talking about that.
He's very outspoken on environmental issues.
Yeah,
and
actually, out there supporting a lot of good causes.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know if you talked about this, Bill, but President Obama made 3 new big national monuments. It's going to cover more than 1 million acres in California, Texas, and Nevada. You'll know this better than I will, Bill. The Snow Mountain in California, the Berryessa.
Yep.
Is that it? Berryessa Snow Mountain in California?
Up in Lake County.
And a paleontological site in Texas known as the Waco Mammoth Site, and the Basin and Range in Nevada, which includes rock art dating back 4,000 years. That also includes a large artwork piece by artist Michael Heiser, where he's been building into the land there in Nevada. All of that's going to be covered as new national monuments.
Yeah, and it's this area in California is a pretty remote area. It's not that far north, but it's not like on the beaten path. You know?
Sure.
And so
Is that near Lake Berryessa?
Near Lake Berryessa.
Oh, okay.
Right. North of the Bay Area, kind of Lake County.
There you go.
North of Napa County. All right. Thank you. Yes, indeed. The big news yesterday. We continue today. It was just about this time yesterday morning. We were talking about the fact that the president would soon be making an announcement from the White House. he did, with Vice President Joe Biden standing by his side, that after months and months of really tough negotiations, down to the wire, the United States and our partners, don't forget, I think it's just important to keep reminding ourselves that we did not do this alone, right? I mean, this was an effort of the United States plus China, Russia, England, France, Germany, and the UK. And critics of the deal have to realize that, that when they say, like somebody said yesterday, we were snookered, it's hard to believe that the foreign minister of Iran was able to snooker the leaders of all of those countries. At any rate, the president announcing after all of that time, an agreement had been reached.
After 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
And the heart of this deal, the president says, is that we will lift the sanctions against Iran, but only after we know for sure that they're complying with the terms of the deal and dismantling their nuclear weapons production program.
Iran must abide by the deal before additional sanctions are lifted, including 5 years for restrictions related to arms and 8 years for restrictions related to ballistic missiles.
Now the deal goes to Congress, and the president says, "Yep, bring it on. Let's have a full debate."
So I welcome a robust debate in Congress on this issue, and I welcome scrutiny of the details of this agreement.
Now look, let's talk about it. And I want to hear from you again, as we did yesterday. Do you support this deal? Yes or no? Do you think it's good for America? Yes or no? And I got to say, as far as I'm concerned, this is a historic deal. This is a good deal. It doesn't include everything. It doesn't deal, for example, with the 4 Americans, or maybe 5, we're not sure, that are being held by Iran right now. That was outside the terms of this deal. Not everybody got everything they wanted. It's not a perfect deal. The president will be the first one to admit that. But it is a historic deal, and it's a good deal. Just think of the main terms. Number one, it says that Iran will dismantle its nuclear production program for at least 10 years. They will dismantle their research and development of nuclear technology for at least 15 years. During that time, there will be inspection and verification of their nuclear facilities and their military installations during that 10 years. And when, as the president just pointed out, we know that they have complied and have destroyed some of their machinery, or put the rest in storage, or shut everything down. When we know they've complied, then we will gradually lift the economic sanctions against them. And 5 years from now, the United Nations will reconsider its ban on conventional weapons sales to Iran. So those are kind of basically the outline of the deal. And again, I don't care how you slice it. We have stopped Iran from building a nuclear weapon. We have saved the world from a nuclear Iran for at least 10 years against our mortal enemy for the last 3 decades, and we did it without firing a shot. Now, I don't care who you are, Republican or Democrat. That, to me, is good news, and it's worth celebrating. But, of course, the Republicans were out in force yesterday. It was almost funny. Peter, you weren't here, but we were watching on the cable, popping up on the cable channels. Lindsey Graham, Rick Santorum, Carly Fiorina, Scott Walker. They were rushed. They were falling over themselves to get out there to denounce this deal. John McCain, Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, they're all running out there. Here, for example, here's Scott Walker.
I will terminate that deal. I will put in place crippling economic sanctions on Iran, and I will convince our allies to do the same.
Yeah, what an idiot.
Think about that comment.
Yeah. What a total idiot. It's like Mitt Romney saying, on day one, I will repeal Obamacare. He can't do that.
And think about what Scott Walker's saying. Like, we have this sweeping deal. As you pointed out, it's not just us.
No, right.
It's sweeping.
Right.
He's going to go and lobby all of those countries and change their minds.
Right.
That's what Scott Walker is promising.
Actually, it's worse than that. First, he's saying he's going to repeal the deal.
Sure. Right.
Which is not just our deal, as I said. It was with all those people, making your point.
Yeah.
He's going to do it himself. And then he's going to put crippling sanctions on. Well, there are no crippling sanctions against our allies who agreed to this deal, agree to go back and join us in putting sanctions on. Otherwise, there are no crippling. These were crippling sanctions because everybody was involved in them. He doesn't know what the hell he is talking about. And every one of the 15 Republican candidates announced so far to announce this deal, including the 16th Republican presidential candidate. Here he is. He spoke from Tel Aviv.
The world is a much more dangerous place today than it was yesterday.
Yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu, Bibi Netanyahu. He might as well come over here and run as a Republican because that's all he is. He's a Republican stooge against President Obama, Bibi Netanyahu. And you know what? Here's what's going on with these guys. Let's face it. They're all against it because Obama's for it. It's just pure, cheap, petty, partisan politics. It's the only reason. And to those people, my question is to them, okay, number one, right? Iran is going to give up its nuclear weapon for at least 10 years. What's wrong with that? Like, come on, tell me, what's wrong with that? They don't have an answer. And number two, what's your alternative? What's your alternative? They don't have an alternative. You know what their alternative is? Yeah. Hello, John McCain. Bomb Iran. That's what they want. It's a military alternative. So, and let's just keep our senses about this thing. Good deal or not? You tell me. 866-55-PRESS. I say it's a historic deal. It's a good deal for the United States, for President Obama, and for the world. We're a safer place because of this deal.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here, and she said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The the dope dealers ain't scared because they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
You know, all I got to say is these Republicans are going to be really, really busy on day one of their presidency. God forbid if any of them get there, right? So they're going to have to repeal Obamacare. They're going to have to repeal the Iran deal now. And then they're going to have to repeal any progress we've made with Cuba. What else?
On day one.
All of this, yeah. All of this are going to... It's going to be busy on day one. And the rhetoric is just out of bounds about this Iran deal, okay? Lindsey Graham says this is a death sentence for Israel. Mike Huckabee says we're looking at the apocalypse. Yeah, this is the end of the world as we know it.
Which is, by the way, what John Boehner said about Obamacare. It would be Armageddon.
Yeah.
So we're just changing it a little bit.
Jeb Bush says this is appeasement, tripping over themselves to find out who can say the worst things about it. Kevin, calling from out in Chicago on WCPT. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, how you doing, Bill?
I'm doing good. What do you think?
Let's look at a little history here. In 1953, we overthrew their democratically elected government, installed the Shah. He brought in the SWAT. They tortured all their people. We gave Saddam chemical weapons. We gave him intelligence to use against the Iranians.
Yes.
Hell, I'm surprised they even were willing to sit down and trust us. So the fact that we could come up with some sort of a diplomatic answer or solution, it's like, hey, let's give this a try because, like Obama said with Cuba, when you've been doing something the same way for 40 years or 50 years and get the same backwards result. Maybe it's time to try something different.
Absolutely. Time to try something different in both Cuba and Iran. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the call. More calls
this
coming up.
Is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there,
in black and white in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in this city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? 33 minutes after the hour, would you believe, on a Wednesday, well, it's not Thursday yet, Wednesday, July 15, The Bill Press Show here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. It's already a little hot and muggy, but it's to be expected. What the hell? It's summer.
It's summer.
It's Washington. It's July, right? That's why anybody with any sense flees Washington in the summer. We're here, though, in our nation's capital and reaching out to you nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV. Brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America. The good men and women of the Laborers Union under President Terry O'Sullivan. We all live better as they build a better America, and that's their website. Check it out, LIUNA, LIUNA, buildsamerica.org. We're talking about the big news of the day announced by President Obama at the White House yesterday morning. A nuclear weapons deal after months and months of tough negotiations reached between, remember, it's just not us at the table, United States, China, Russia, England, France, Germany, and who am I forgetting? One other. Got them out of order there, threw me off. The P5+1 and Iran. And keep our eye on the ball. The focus is, the main thrust of this is that Iran has agreed to totally dismantle its nuclear weapons production program for 10 years to abandon any research and development into nuclear weapons technology for 15 years. And in return, once we know that they have dismantled their facilities, we will lift some of the economic sanctions against Iran, those that relate directly to nuclear weapons production. A good deal, an historic deal, I believe. And by the way, we mentioned some of all the Republican candidates lining up against it, vowing to repeal it on day one of their presidency. We should also point out that the deal does have its supporters, including Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, who was very instrumental in getting these talks started.
This is an important step in putting the lid on Iran's nuclear program.
And Senator Bernie Sanders as well yesterday on the Senate floor talking about and saluting those who put together this deal.
I applaud the President, Secretary Kerry, for their efforts in a very crazy and dangerous world to create an agreement with Iran which prevents Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
And
a nuclear weapon.
Nuclear weapon. Right, okay.
I love it, man.
Where's he from again? No. He's from Brooklyn.
I'm from Baraboo.
And don't forget, I think the question to anybody from John McCain to Lindsey Graham to Scott Walker to Benjamin Netanyahu, all these critics of the deal is, okay, what's your alternative, wise guy? What do you suggest? We all agree we don't want Iran ever to get a nuclear weapon. Okay, how are you going to make sure that happens? Right? We really want another war with Iran? Joey is out in Chicago, 866-55-PRESS. You know the number. Let's find out. What do you think? Is it a good deal or not? Here's Joey out in Chicago. Joey, what's up?
Good morning, everybody. I think it's a fantastic deal. It's a historic deal. We've tried what the Republicans want to do before with a country called North Korea. We played hardball. We cut them off from society, the whole world. What happened? They turned around and built 10 of them in a year. Okay?
Yeah.
You can't play hardball with these countries. Every country needs their security, and you can't play hardball with them. You play hardball like North Korea, you're going to end up with a nuclear Iran. It was a fantastic deal, and this is diplomacy. This is what world leaders do, diplomacy.
Yeah. Excellent point, Joey. I'm glad you remind us about North Korea. It's true. Now, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I want even less for North Korea to have a nuclear weapon. But they've got it.
Yeah.
They've got a whole bunch of them, and they got a maniac as their president, right, I'm just amazed he hasn't used one yet.
He brings up a good point. Like, what is the fear of working things out? Why is this such a terrible thing? You know, I mean, they get this title of warmonger, right? And it gets thrown around a lot, and
that's who they are.
It's pretty clear that they want some sort of conflict here. They want a war. And so we found a way to not go into war. We found a way to work this out diplomatically, not just between us and Iran.
Right.
And that's all of a sudden a terrible idea. What's so bad about that?
Right. No.
I don't get it.
Again, it's getting to the point where it does remind me so much about the battle over the Affordable Care Act, where they said they voted 55 times to repeal Obamacare. They have never said what they would replace it with. They have never said what the alternative would be.
Yeah.
Except for millions and millions more people not to have health insurance, right?
Right.
They've never provided an alternative. It's the same thing with this nuclear weapons deal with Iran. They're against it. They're going to repeal it. They've never said they would replace it for what. You know, it almost sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. We know what these people are against. I have no idea what they're for. All these Republican candidates, they're against immigration reform. They're against Obamacare. They're against this Iran nuclear deal. They're against doing anything about climate change. Don't you think sometime between now and November 2016, we ought to know what they're for? I mean, we don't just elect people to go in there and take a sledgehammer and knock down the walls that were built by Barack Obama. They should stand for something and offer some vision of where they want to take the country. and particularly in this case, in terms of foreign policy, all right, where do you want to take the country in the Middle East? You don't want a deal whereby Iran would suspend its nuclear weapons program. So what do you want? You want another war?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Forget, was it Kevin from Chicago? I forget the name of our caller, the first caller before the break in Chicago, who pointed us out. Yeah, we once supported Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, it's true.
In a war against Iran. Yeah, we allowed Saddam Hussein to use chemical weapons against the Iranian people and against his own people in the war against Iran. So in a sense, we almost were responsible for the bad relations in a large part that we had with Iran to begin with. One other thing we got to talk about, anyhow, your calls, 866-55-PRESS, always welcome down to the show. We'll be talking throughout with our members. Remember, 3 Democratic members of Congress coming up later in the program. We'll be talking with all of them, their take on this proposed nuclear deal with Iran. But not to be lost in the news, yesterday President Obama was up in Philadelphia speaking with the NAACP, and he was talking about a very, very important program for him in this a year and a half remaining in his presidency, and that is criminal justice reform. It's something he started with Attorney General Eric Holder to do something about the problem of so many people in our prisons, state prisons, local prisons, federal prisons, on nonviolent drug-related charges. President Obama wanted to talk to the NAACP about that yesterday, but first he made clear, now just because I'm up here, don't expect, you know what?
Let's get something out of the way up front. I am not singing today.
I am not singing today, he said.
You should have.
Well, you know, he can't sing on every occasion.
Yeah.
No. But he did tell them something about, this is shocking, I find. The number of people that we have in federal prison today in the United States.
Our incarceration rate is 4 times higher than China's.
4 times higher than China.
We keep more people behind bars than the top 35 European countries combined.
Imagine that. More people in prison in the United States than the top 35 European countries combined. Our prisons are just chock full. They're stuffed full disproportionately with young black men. Why? For nonviolent drug-related charges. And the president says their sentences are just way out of bounds.
If you're a low-level drug dealer or you violate your parole, you owe some debt to society. You have to be held accountable and make amends. But you don't owe 20 years. You don't owe a life sentence.
Yeah. 20 years for smoking a joint, right?
Yeah.
A life sentence for even dealing drugs. I mean,
stupid.
Yeah. And so the president, that's just, you know what? He used the old Gilbert and Sullivan phrase from HMS Pinafore, the punishment has to fit the crime. And the problem with these, in this case, is the president used that at the White House and he used it at the NAACP yesterday. Their punishment does not fit their crime, and we got to do something about it. Very, very important issue. Don't want to get that lost. David Jackson covers the White House for USA Today. He was doing pool duty yesterday, and boy, did he have a busy day starting at 5 a.m. yesterday morning. He will tell us all about it next here on the Bill Press Show, so stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, it's 13 minutes now before the top of the hour. How about it? Wednesday, July 15, and I got to tell you, yesterday when I checked my iPhone and saw that the the pool call, rather, for the White House yesterday morning was 5 a.m., I said to myself, boy, who's the poor sucker that's stuck on pool today? And then I looked, David Jackson with USA Today. David, you got the short straw yesterday, huh?
Well, you know, as you know, I'm up early anyway, so it wasn't that much of a chore.
That's right, but it was a historic day yesterday.
It was, and I figured I had to monitor things anyway. So I woke up about 3 a.m. I noticed there was nothing on my Twitter feed or on the wires out of Vienna. So
what time did
they call you? Took a shower, grabbed something. About 3:30, stuff started moving over the wires, and I heard got a deal, and I got a call from the White House to make sure that I would be there at 5 a.m.
That 3 a.m. hour is a lonely hour, David. We know it well, buddy.
It was a strange deal because of the 6-hour time difference in Vienna. A unique situation, I would say, but I was pretty sure the night before that something was going to happen.
Remember,
so
Hillary Clinton warned us about that 3 a.m. phone call.
There you go. Oh, I didn't think about that. There it is.
We know one person who's definitely ready. David Jackson.
But I was impressed that the president and the vice president, wow, both right there yesterday.
No, they made the point of noting that President Obama, I mean, the aides that we talked to in the pool, they made the point of saying that Vice President Biden will be here, and Obama really wanted him there because he feels like he helped out very much on this agreement, and they're looking to raise the vice president's profile a little bit there too.
And then what after the president made his address there at the entrance to the East Room, how did he spend the rest of his time in the morning?
Making phone calls.
Right. Yeah.
That's originally the schedule said he was supposed to leave for Philadelphia at 1 o'clock. Well, they cut the deal in Vienna, so he wanted to address the nation during the morning shows. They did that at a little after 7 a.m., and then he went to the Oval Office, and aides and literally countries across the world were arranging phone calls between President Obama and other world leaders. I believe he talked to 6 leaders in Europe. He talked to the King of Saudi Arabia. He talked to Benjamin Netanyahu, which, of course, was the most interesting phone call because that's the fiercest critic of the Iran deal. I believe he talked to the leaders of the United Arab Emirates, and there's probably some other phone calls we don't know about. So he was basically on the phone from, I would say 7:30 right on up past the lunch hour because his departure to Philadelphia was an hour late.
And was he also calling members of Congress?
He called them Monday night, we're informed. He called the leaders of Congress to say that he would make an announcement about the Iran deal. That's a good question, Bill. We didn't get a readout about it, but I suspect he did talk to members of Congress somewhere along the line yesterday.
And he seemed pretty confident and welcomed the debate. It's almost like bring it on, right?
Yeah. Well, the fact is, it'd be very difficult for Congress to derail this debate. They could pass, the Republican-run House and the Republican-run Senate could pass resolutions of disapproval, but Obama's free to veto one or both of them, and both houses would have to generate a 2/3 vote in order to override that veto. So just logistically, it's going to be very difficult to defeat this thing.
I must say, this is not necessarily your beat, but I was surprised to see that the chair of the Democratic Party was expressing some concerns about this deal and about the Cuban, change of normalizing relations.
Well, South Florida, a lot of pressure down there. When I was down in Miami for the Jeb Bush event, there was a lot of criticism of the Cuba deal. It surprised me a little bit. So I think that's reflecting that. And I think Debbie Wasserman Schultz also has a lot of Jewish support, and a lot of Jewish organizations are going to jump into this thing. They're kind of concerned about Iran as well. So. Now, she's getting it from a lot of different sectors.
Right. Then I imagine she probably got a phone call or two from the White House as well.
Right.
Then he goes to Philadelphia on what has become a real next maybe big project for him is this criminal justice reform.
Yeah, very much. And it was kind of a shame because that was a very involved, long, detailed speech about criminal justice, and it didn't get a lot of attention. We wrote about it, but a lot of people didn't. It's a new program that he wants to try to reduce sentencing disparities. It feels like African Americans and Hispanics are getting treated a lot harsher in the criminal justice system than others. He wants to change that. He wants to end a lot of mandatory sentencing laws because the way they've turned out, a lot of people wind up going to prison for long stretches for relatively minor crimes. Mm-hmm. So, and the reason it's interesting is because a lot of Republicans have also expressed interest in changes to the criminal justice system, including Rand Paul. Mm-hmm. So you can see a pathway there through Congress to get something done. John Cornyn, I believe, is also involved in this on the Senate side. So there's a lot of conservatives are also interested in making the kinds of changes that President Obama's talked about.
Yeah,
so
I think they see the potential here for getting something done. Now, the president has called a news conference today for 1 o'clock. I'll be there with you, David. What's this all about?
He's selling the Iran deal. I mean, it's just as simple as that. He's talking to us. I believe you'll be seeing a lot of interviews with some foreign policy scribes in the coming days. He's just looking to sell the Iran deal not only to people here in the United States, but also to allies, particularly in Israel, particularly in the Middle East, who are skeptical of whether Iran will live up to its commitments. And he's basically just sell. Now, as we mentioned, it'll be very difficult for Congress to overturn this agreement, but it would be pretty embarrassing if a majority of Congress votes against it, even a veto-proof majority. So I think he wants to try to avoid that. So he's calling a news conference today. Vice President Biden will be meeting with House Democrats about the Iran deal this morning as well. So you'll be seeing a very big lobbying effort from the White House on behalf of the Iran agreement.
Yep. So the first priority is to make the deal, and the second is to sell it. Huh?
Exactly. It's not so much to get it. I think he's got it. But I think he wants the majority of Congress to support it.
Especially keeping all the Democrats on board too.
Oh,
as
for sure.
Well. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you got to sleep in a little bit later today, and we will see you at 1 o'clock down at the White House.
Great. See you later, Bill.
Hey, thanks so much, David. David Jackson does such a great job covering the White House for USA Today, joining us, and we thank him again.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000. I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At the top of the next hour, Congressman Dan Kildee, and then he'll be followed from Michigan. He'll be followed by Congressman Jim Hines from Connecticut. Democratic members coming in.
That's right, man. Another day, another celebrity here in Washington, D.C. Yesterday on the Hill was actor Richard Gere. Richard Gere, who has fought for a long time for rights for Tibet.
Yep.
He was back again fighting for more rights for Tibet. He praised the Dalai Lama in a hearing called Tibet and China Searching for a New Way Forward. So
he's been involved with the Dalai Lama for a long time.
I
met him years and years ago, one time in Los Angeles, at an event, a producer's house in Los Angeles with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. His Holiness, as they call him.
Wait, Richard Gere or the Dalai Lama?
Well, we Catholics call the Pope His Holiness, so
right.
Just depends.
A little awkward.
All right, thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. So we'll be back with the two Democratic members of Congress in the next hour. Dan Kildee from Connecticut, Jim Hines from I got him back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's the apocalypse. It's Armageddon. It's the end of the world as we know it. That's what Mike Huckabee says about the Iran deal. All right, well, nice knowing you. Goodbye. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Wednesday.
See you later.
Doesn't that say we're
I got to make a few calls.
That's right.
But where would you rather be in your final moments than right here on the Bill Press Show?
Don't say that any of these Republicans would exaggerate to make a point. No, don't accuse them of that. Hello, everybody. Wednesday, July 15, the Bill Press Show. Here we go, coming to you from our studio on Capitol Hill and reaching out to you nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Good to see you this Wednesday with lots of breaking news, and we can't, of course, cover the news without the help of good friends, and we can't celebrate our 10th anniversary year either without the help of good friends, and one of those first in line to offer his congratulations joins us in studio. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan's 5th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Nice to see you. You know, we had to get special permission from Nancy Pelosi this morning because you're here, and then Jim Himes from Connecticut is joining us, and a little bit later, Jackie Speier from California. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's a big percentage of the Democratic caucus right now. I wish it were a smaller percentage.
There were 45 others who wanted to come in, but we just have so much time. So
and you have standards.
And you're number one on the list. So
all right.
It's great to see you today. Thank you again. Don't forget, we'll bring you up to date on all that's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the world. You tell us what you think about it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. As I mentioned, members of Congress filling the time this morning, joining us as our guest, and Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. We're not sure how Joe snuck into the lineup this morning, but
Does this mean Joe's running for Congress?
That could be it.
That's what's happening.
Depends on where he lives.
Right. And we'll get right to the news of the day with Congressman Kildee. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. I guess you could say this is better late than never. A 94-year-old German who worked as a bookkeeper in Auschwitz has been convicted of being an accessory to the murder of 300,000 people, and he has been sentenced to 4 years in prison. Oscar Groening is the man's name. He didn't actually kill anyone
he could
himself.
Get out when he's 98?
Well, that's the thing. That's part of the reason he got such a lenient sentence, is the guy is 94 and it's been so long. So they didn't throw the book at him necessarily. They're not saying that they don't expect him to survive that whole 4-year sentence, but let's be clear, they don't expect him to survive that whole 4-year sentence. So time finally caught up with him. But yeah, he and again, they pointed out that he didn't actually kill anyone, but being an accessory to the Holocaust is just as serious as anything else out there. So Oscar Groening is going away. How about this story? There is a woman who lives in Massachusetts. Her family has had the oldest baseball card in existence for many, 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 many years. It's lived inside of a chocolate candy box. The woman's great-great-uncle was a man by the name of Archibald McMahon, and he played outfield for the Brooklyn Atlantics. He's one of the men featured on this baseball card. And she finally said, I think it's time I can get rid of this. It's 155 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, what would you pay for it?
I don't know. I don't even know if I'd like to know where the chocolate went.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know how much it's going to go up for sale. She pointed out it's going to go up for auction. She pointed out that her great-great-uncle, the Archibald McMahon that I mentioned, is in that card, is on the card, but she doesn't know which one he is because it's a shot of the whole team, and she doesn't know exactly which one.
Some people pay for baseball memorabilia.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Market.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And in London, there is a restaurant called Wing Eggs. They serve wings and eggs. That's what they serve. And they just unveiled a new offering on its menu. You can order one whole fried ostrich egg. It costs about $85. And one ostrich egg is the equivalent of 24 regular eggs.
Good Lord. Wow. Yeah.
So if you're a bodybuilder and you need that protein load, go eat
a lot of cholesterol.
Yeah, it's a lot of cholesterol.
You can make 12 omelets.
Yeah, you could. They say that they need 2 days' notice so that they can get the ostrich egg and they can cook the ostrich egg. It fills an entire large dinner plate, and they suggest that you split it with a couple of friends.
I guess ostriches don't lay as many eggs as chickens.
I guess not.
If it takes you a 2 days notice,
yeah,
you got to tell the ostrich, hey, we need an egg. Give them a couple of days. Build one up.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Peter. Congressman, with all this news flying around and everything happening so much, Hillary Clinton comes to the Hill yesterday and meets with the entire Democratic caucus.
Yeah, it was great.
How'd it go?
It was really good. I mean, a lot of the focus was on her core message, and then she had time for questions. I did raise a question regarding the Iran agreement. She did spend some time, providing her thoughts on that, which I think was really helpful and timely, given her
role
history as the Secretary of State and actually initiating much of the engagement with Iran herself. Yeah, I thought it was good. It was a really good exchange, and she obviously has a lot of friends in the room, and I count myself among them.
Mm-hmm. Have you endorsed yet?
I have.
You have?
Yeah, very early on. I've known Hillary for a long time. Met her back when Bill was in the White House, and have had a good relationship with her, and I'm happy to support her.
And she picked up, from what I've read, it was a very positive session, picked up a lot of friends, if not even more supporters.
I think so. I mean, she was really focused, and I think her core message was really the thing that I think impressed a lot of people. But her knowledge of the subject, like the subject of the day, Iran, as compared to the cacophony of competing press releases from folks on the other side, I mean, the difference couldn't be more stark in terms of her preparation for that kind of a question.
Yeah, and the first big difference is she knows what she's talking about, and none of them do.
Right,
yeah,
no question about it.
None of us have seen the deal yet or have a chance to read it. From what you know about it, is it a deal what do you think about it? Is it good for this country?
Well, I'm generally favorable. I'm going to actually take the time to review the agreement.
Whoa, how
I know.
unusual.
I know.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to read it and consider both the text and the context. And I think that's really an important distinction. The text meaning, what does it really say? Because I've heard all sorts of members of Congress, some that I was with last night, reciting elements of the agreement that are simply not factual as a justification for their opposition to it. The context, though, is also critical, because we can criticize this agreement, but in order to decide that it's not the right path forward, we actually have to examine what the other alternatives really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is it possible, for example, to go back and get a new agreement? I think that's really going to be tough. After all, the P5+1, they have their deal.
Yeah.
I mean, Germany,
they
Britain,
all signed off on
Russia,
this, right?
China, France, U.S. have signed off on this deal. This is the deal. So that leaves what other options? A military intervention? I mean, I don't think the American people are at that place. We really have to ask ourselves, as compared to the logical other paths forward, is this the path that's safer for the world? Do we have the opportunity to deal with Iran and all of its bad behavior, absent their possession of a nuclear weapon? Or will we deal with Iran in all of its bad behavior with the threat that they may gain a nuclear weapon? And we have to judge whether this agreement actually takes us there. Obviously, for me, I'm also very interested in whether Iran will unilaterally act to release the Americans that they hold, including.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that next, because last time you were in, we've talked about this. One of the Americans held in Iran is a constituent of yours.
Right. Amir Hekmati, a 31-year-old guy from Flint, Michigan. His parents were born in Iran, but he was born and raised in the U.S. He went to visit, and next month it will be 4 years that he has sat in Evin prison.
And you've been working with his family for all that time to get his release. Do you think that? And this was something we talked at the White House about with Josh Earnest.
Right.
Do you think the fate of these prisoners should have been part of this deal?
No, I don't. I think it would have been dangerous for the United States to enter into an agreement in exchange for the freedom of Americans who are innocent, something else at the negotiating table. This was a very delicately reached agreement. Again, we have to evaluate it.
Right.
But if we included them in the deal, the nature of negotiation is that something would have been given in order to secure that concession from them. And that something would be something that makes the world a less safe place. My constituent, Amir Hekmati, is a patriot. He served in the Marine Corps, and he said he does not want to be traded for any concession at that nuclear bargaining table. And that's been the position of the other Americans as well.
To the extent that you can tell us, do you believe that the administration is doing what it can to secure his release?
I do. I've spoken to the president many times about this, and spoken to Secretary Kerry. There have been sidebar discussions at virtually every negotiation session of the P5+1 regarding the status of these Americans, not as a part of the negotiation, but sort of off to the side. And I'm confident they continue to press.
What's Iran saying that what are they charging him with?
Well, in the case of Amir, and this is also the case of Jason Rezaian, the Washington Post reporter, they've been charged with cooperating with a hostile government. In the case of Amir Hekmati, he was a member of the United States Marine Corps, and under Iranian law, these people are considered Iranian citizens, even though they were born and raised in the United States. Under their law, a first-generation expat is still an Iranian. And so when you put those two facts together, that's where they see these people as Iranian citizens cooperating with
the United States?
With the United States.
And
now,
they're citizens of the United States.
Citizens born and raised in the case of Amir Hekmati.
Yeah.
The issue for me in this case, too, gets even more interesting because now you have Iran sitting across a diplomatic table with this so-called hostile government, entering into a pretty substantial agreement. So even the underlying fact of the hostility of this nation and that has come into question at this point in time as well. So we just think Iran needs to do the right thing and make a gesture that I think would further validate some of the other efforts that they're trying to make to be seen as a legitimate player on the world stage. If they release these Americans, it would make a difference in terms of the way some, myself included, would view that nation.
Now, the entire shift now with the Iran deal shifts to Congress because 60 days, the clock is ticking, and we already heard yesterday Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker John Boehner come out and pan the deal, condemn the deal, and they're going to do what they can to try to get a majority of Congress against it. How do you think that's going to fly?
Well, I think in the Senate, it'll probably be close. I'm not real sure in the House. I haven't heard any Republicans in the House indicate a positive reaction to the deal. But there was an understanding that Congress entered into with the president in saying, look, we're going to sort of grant this negotiating authority and we will put Congress in a position to override the agreement. So Congress went into this with eyes open, knowing that it would take a 2/3 majority of both bodies of Congress in order to stop the deal. And that was an explicit, eyes open understanding.
2/3 in the House and 2/3 in the Senate.
Correct.
To override it.
Correct.
And then the president could still veto
well,
that, couldn't he?
if it was an override proof or a veto proof vote, then no. So the real question, the threshold here is 2/3 in each body. The House is tough to say. A lot of eyes will be on both bodies. I'm particularly interested in the Senate because it's more likely that the Senate will act before it comes to the House. It's possible that the Senate will act before they recess.
That soon?
Possible.
Yeah. Well, that's just 2 weeks from now.
Well, they have an extra week here.
Oh, I got it.
It takes them longer to not get their work done, I guess.
That's a good way of putting it, right? Congressman Dan Kildee here with us on a very historic day, very busy day here in Washington and around the world. There was one tough set of negotiations to secure this deal. It's going to be another tough set of negotiations to sell this deal, and the president has already started. Your questions, your comments, what do you think? Is this good for America? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back. Talk about the issues of the day with good Congressman from Michigan.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut joining us at the half hour, stepping into the big shoes of Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan.
Hey, I'll need
right
these
now.
shoes.
Congressman, good to have you with us again.
Thanks.
Let's say hello to Walter out in Hearst, Texas. Hey, Walter, good morning.
Good morning. I hope you're doing well today.
We are, thank you. Yeah. What's your question or comment?
My question to the congressman and the press, and not yourself, is what is the alternative to this deal? I mean, I've had service myself. I've had my son in service. I was a Vietnam guy. My son's a Desert Storm. And our consensus is we don't want to go fight again. So what is the Republican alternative? It appears that every time we ask one, they change the subject. So what is their alternative?
All right, good. The most important question, I think, Walter, indeed. Take your answer on the air, Congressman.
It is the most important question because it's the alternatives that we have to measure this agreement against. So it seems that the alternatives are fairly limited. One that has been suggested that I don't think is realistic is to go back and renegotiate a deal. It's not going to happen because this is the deal that was negotiated over a very long period of time. It is the result of multilateral diplomatic efforts, and Russia and China and Britain, France and Germany have signed off on this. So I think that's an interesting theoretical option, but it's not real. The other option, unfortunately, would be that we would see the progression of Iran's aspiration toward a nuclear weapon continue. And then we have to ask ourselves whether we are willing to either engage in a military action or support a military action that might be launched, say, by Israel. That's a dangerous option, one that has consequences that we can't even fathom at this point in time. I heard a member of Congress, a Republican member of Congress last night, suggest that there was another option, and that was regime change. Well, come on. I mean, how has that worked? How do you operationalize that? How does it work out? So all these other options, they sound interesting.
Yeah, that's like pie in the sky. Sure, it would be great if suddenly there were a new democratic leader of Iran, right?
And I would love to have all my hair back. I mean, these are just not options that are realistic, that we can plan for. Here's the thing. Diplomacy's hard. It's hard to do, and it's hard to accept. And by definition, it's almost always criticized at the moment. Nixon to China, engagement with Russia, look at what the president has done with Cuba. Anytime you have a diplomatic effort, it's so easy to criticize it because you don't have to be responsible for the alternative, and that's unfortunate.
No, absolutely. Excellent point to end with, Congressman. Sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming in again. All right. Keep up the good fight. Back with Congressman Jim Himes, colleague.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
Crime Advisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry. Hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies in Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
You got it 33 minutes after the hour. It's a Wednesday, July 15. This is The Bill Press Show. We are here in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we're brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists, the good men and women of the Machinists Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy, you bet. And for more information, you can check out their website at goiam.org. As I mentioned, we're just down the street from the United States Capitol building, which is very convenient for us because, you know, we can just snag all these members of Congress as they're walking to work and bring them into the studio this morning. Starting with Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan, who is on his way to his office. And joining us now from Connecticut's 4th Congressional District, a good friend of the program, Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut. Hello, Congressman. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Things
Great
off
to
to
be
a
back.
good start.
Things off to an exciting start, that's for sure.
Dan Kildee and then Jackie Speier from California is coming in the next hour. So we've sort of we had to get Nancy Pelosi's permission to have like a caucus meeting this morning almost.
Well, we do have a caucus meeting at 8:45 this morning with the irrepressible Vice President Joe Biden coming to talk to us about Iran. So
nice.
Nobody misses those meetings.
Wow, he's coming to meet with the entire caucus.
He is, yeah.
So the big sales pitch is underway from the White House.
Yeah, no, I give these guys credit. You know, it's in contrast, I would say, to their pretty late arrival to their side of the fight on trade. On Iran, I actually got a phone call from the White House the night before the deal was announced. So they are completely all over this one. I think they know that it could be a fight, and they're sending Joey B himself to charm the caucus this morning.
Yeah, all right. I want to get into that in just a second. But the caucus yesterday, someone else was in to charm the caucus yesterday. Hillary Clinton, her day on the Hill meeting with Senate Democrats and House Democrats. I'm sure you were there. She met with the entire House caucus. How did it go? How was she received?
I think it went really well. You know, there's always questions in the background. You know, is everybody on board with Hillary, or are people getting pulled away to Bernie Sanders or to O'Malley? And she received a huge, warm family welcome, and gave a great talk. It was really, it was two things really. It was her recounting herself as a grandmother and talking a lot about how that has sort of oriented her thinking to have a next generation of Clintons. But really, then she spoke with one exception that we should come back around to. She spoke purely about the economy, wages, opportunity. And to sit there, I'm pretty excited about Hillary Clinton, as you can tell, but to sit there while she's doing that, and the other side is vilifying Mexicans, talking about preserving the Confederate flag and pledging before the deal's ever been announced to bring down the Iran deal. It just from the politician in me was pretty satisfied with the difference in narratives.
Right. Have you endorsed Hillary?
I have. Yes.
All
I'm
right.
excited about her.
Did she pick up any new endorsements yesterday? Do you know her?
You know, I'm not sure. I didn't watch that, but anyway, there was a very warm family welcome in the caucus. I think she did a good job, and then of course she did talk about Iran and came out carefully in favor of the agreement, which, considering it was breaking news at the time, was interesting to see.
And particularly given her role,
well, exactly,
in getting things started as well. So Bernie Sanders hasn't tempted you to maybe, soften your endorsement or move away or.
You know, I have infinite respect for Bernie Sanders. I really do, and I think he's playing an absolutely essential role, both in reminding us how important it is that we address the fundamental inequalities in this country. I don't personally believe he's likely to get elected. And again, I think he plays a great role as an exponent for some of our core values. And I also think he plays a great practical role. People who know Secretary Clinton better than I do tell me almost with unanimity that she does best when she's in a debate. So I actually think it's a good thing.
Yeah. A little challenge, I think, is good for everybody.
Yeah.
She said that. I'm not sure she really believes it, but she said that. So your take on this Iran deal, because now it's in your lap. I mean, I didn't realize until a little earlier that the vice president himself is coming to make a pitch for Democrats to stand with the administration on this. We have heard all the Republican candidates going almost over the top in their rhetoric about what's wrong with it and their vow to repeal it on day one where they elected president of the United States. What do you think of it?
First, I was so disheartened to see people issuing, poison pen press releases really before the deal had even been announced, vows to kill this thing. There are very few things we'll take up that are as serious and as important to our national security with more significant consequences. I mean, let's face it, one scenario is a military attack on Iran. The president has left that on the table. That's a possibility. When something of that magnitude is on the table, it's time to take off the press release hat and be deliberate and careful. And we saw, sadly, the opposite of that yesterday. Now, by the way, it is totally legitimate to offer up criticisms of this deal. This is a compromise. It's a diplomatic deal, which means, as I always knew it was going to be, it's not going to make us happy. But
not a perfect deal. There's not such a thing, right?
Not a perfect deal, but for starters, you hear in the media today and yesterday people saying, "My God, Iran is going to get money," and that's true, and that was always the deal. They were going to get sanctions lifted in exchange for an aggressive reduction of their nuclear program. Folks, that was always going to be the deal. It wasn't going to be a deal that we love. The Iranians are pretty good negotiators, and they've got good smart negotiators at the table. The piece that is lost here, though, that is making me a little crazy, because look, we'll get into the technology and what's the appropriate number of centrifuges and how much 3.67 refined uranium can you have, all that stuff. If you come right out and say we need to kill this deal, the very next thing you say has got to be because I have a better idea. And let's start over and negotiate a better deal does not qualify as a better idea. You can stipulate that, and by the way, I don't stipulate this, but you can stipulate that President Obama didn't negotiate as well as he should have. Now, I don't believe that, but that's what they're saying. Well, guess what? The French, the Chinese, the Russians, the British, and the European Union was also at the table. So if you're going to say we need to kill it now, you better have a better idea. And I have not yet heard anything other than, well, I'd be tougher. And that's not a better idea. That's posturing.
Or, we'll repeal. I made the analogy earlier. It's like what they say about Obamacare, right? We're going to repeal it. They never say what they replace it with, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
They don't have another plan.
Yeah. No, and of course they're in a box on that issue too.
Yeah, they are. Other than the military option, which you indicated, which the president never took off the table. But for some of these people, I think they always think that's the first step rather than a second step, if you will.
Yeah, and look, and the president was right to keep that on the table. But the bottom line is that we don't ever take a vote around here where you're voting for or you're voting against H.R. 250 because you have perfection as an alternative. You're voting for or against H.R. 250 based on whether that's going to make the world a little bit or a lot better than the status quo. And there is an argument to be made that in Iran with, tens of billions of dollars that it doesn't have today is a more empowered and more dangerous Iran than it was before it got those 10 billion. And we ought to take that very, very seriously. But that's an argument that deserves some reflection because they're bad actors and they could be slightly worse actors with more money. But if we tank this thing, and they start those centrifuges up again, now they're bad actors with more money because you think the French and the Chinese and the Russians are going to go along with us, and they're developing a nuclear weapon. So this is something that is worthy of serious consideration.
The most serious accusation I've heard against the deal from anybody has come from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and some of the Republicans who said, like Lindsey Graham yesterday said, this is a death sentence for Israel. Does that bother you?
Lindsey Graham was one of those people who took himself out of serious debate on this issue when he said that this deal is the equivalent of a declaration of war on Israel. That kind of language is the language of somebody who is unhinged and not interested in accepting that this is a complicated problem. Again, I'm not even asking him or the critics to say this is obviously a good deal. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But when you make that kind of bombastic statement, you take yourself out of the realm of statesman-like consideration. If I were Netanyahu, I would be profoundly skeptical. He is that and more. And we should take these arguments seriously. We should take very seriously the fact that Iran has persistently cheated, and therefore verification should be airtight. We should consider hard what it means for Iran, which has sponsored Hezbollah and Hamas, to have more money. These are all things we should really, as Netanyahu would have us do. Now, I actually think that the prime minister is in the realm of, doesn't matter what's in the deal. There is no deal. I think he said it. There is no deal you can make with these people. And again, my question to him is, you may be right, but what's the alternative? So anyway, my point would be that we should take the substantive concerns seriously. But when you make the kinds of statements that Lindsey Graham made, all you're doing is demonstrating your lack of bona fides.
Right. Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier the trade deal. That's a deal that you were on the opposite side of most congressional Democrats. I want to talk to you about that. And the fact that the Republicans still can't get themselves to pass a budget deal because they're still hung up on the Confederate flag, believe it or not. Congressman Jim Himes with us here from Connecticut, Connecticut's 4th Congressional District. Good time to get a question or comment into a member of Congress. We had some calls here for Congressman Dan Kildee. A chance to talk to Congressman Jim Himes here at 866-55-PRESS. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. Why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. Why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, our foreign policy guru, will be joining us at the top of the next hour. And then joined by a colleague of Congressman Jim Himes, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California. So, Congressman, I thought we'd finished with the Confederate flag. It seems the Republicans still can't quite accept bringing it down, huh?
Well, they've sidelined 2 appropriations bills because the I guess a group of 40 or 50 Southerners has said we will have the Confederate flag displayed on federal property, and so they pulled the Interior bill last week. And again, it's wildly crazy to me. I can only imagine what John Boehner thinks of this.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, so here you have the Republican legislature, the Republican governor of South Carolina, the Republican legislature, this conservative Republican in South Carolina who vote to take down the flag, and yet the United States House of Representatives is still hanging on there. Damn, we're going to keep that flag flying, at least on federal property. And they want to keep it flying in Confederate cemeteries, right? Or federal cemeteries where they're former Confederate soldiers.
That's right. And just to be clear, as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, the institution doesn't own this. It's 40 or 50 wackos that are frankly controlling the majority party on this issue. It's
I mean, this must be embarrassing for Speaker Boehner.
Yeah. Well, Mike Simpson of Idaho, who's a wonderful guy, he said it best. He said, we just put our heads like pumpkins on a stick and handed the Democrats a baseball bat, and that came from Mike Simpson. So I'll let him speak to it.
I think that kind of says it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there? I guess maybe it depends on your style of leadership, but isn't there a point where a grown-up just has to say, "No, we're not going to do this. We are not going to do this. We are not going there."
You'd think, and Bill, I mean, it raises questions for Democrats. Look, we're a disorganized party. We've got our challenges. God knows we're Democrats. There's all kinds of things that maybe we do. But you know what? We're serious about policy. We brought health care. We want to do immigration reform. On the other side, it's Confederate flags and calling Mexicans rapists and nominating Sarah Palin to be vice president of the United States and having Donald Trump as your front runner. My question is, how in God's name do we lose? But we do. We do.
Yeah. And don't tell me there's no difference between the two parties, right? Right.
Look, not even on policy, on basic seriousness. Yeah. On basic seriousness. But anyway, this is a topic for a different day.
Well, it is. But you sort of alluded to Will Rogers saying, "I'm not a member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat."
Exactly.
Right. And that was apparent on the fight over the trade bill, the TPA, particularly the Fast Track Authority. Including in your little state of Connecticut, where Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, the leading opponent of TPA, and you were one of the 28 Democrats who supported it. Why?
Well, a good example, because obviously that was an inter-party fight that got tough, but in the end, we all came back together. No hard feelings. Today's another day. I supported it because Connecticut is a huge exporting state, and my district, the 4th district, is actually the densest area of exporters in Connecticut. And I also had, and there was what they call an information asymmetry here. I was able to read the whole TPP and to look at what we're asking Japan to do vis-a-vis the automakers and look at the environmental standards and the labor standards. A lot of the critics, of course, were not able to do so. And so, that was a very difficult discussion to have. And it's a complicated discussion. On balance, after reading the TPP and talking to my constituents and considering my district, I thought, I'm going to trust the president, based on my review of the TPP, when he says that this will be the most progressive trade agreement the country has ever seen. Now, we will see. We will see. We will presumably sometime in the next 2 months get a look at the TPP and decide yes or no.
But as a member of Congress, are you comfortable, though, with the fact that all you can do is vote yes or no? I mean, I'm sure you have some good ideas about how it could be. How it could be better. Some improvements, some things that ought to be added. You don't have that opportunity now. You've given all the authority to make this deal to the President of the United States.
Yeah, I agree with that about 90%. You are right that procedurally, and by the way, this is nothing new. Fast Track or Trade Promotion Authority has been around for 50, 60 years. And you understand why, right? If you have, as we do right now, 12 countries negotiating, and then it comes back here to be renegotiated by 535 legislators, that's obviously not that you'll never reach an agreement. Nonetheless, your point is valid. It is a delegation of authority to the president. But it's not quite right to say that we have no influence. For example, just, as I looked at the TPP, one thing that really concerned me that I think is of very serious concern now is making sure that the intellectual property protections aren't such that life-saving medications will be less easy to be obtained, particularly in poor countries like Vietnam and Peru. There is some chance that if this is not done right, that it might be very hard to get generic HIV, other medications into places like Vietnam. And so I have pounded Mike Froman on this issue. And I made it very clear that my vote in favor of TPA was because of that. And I'm actually writing him a letter right now saying that this better be in the TPP. That's some influence. Now, I'm one guy, but there's a lot of this. Voting for the TPA, of course, gives you some leverage at that table. If you say, no way, no how, Mike Froman and the president don't need to listen to your input. If you say yes, understanding that you're right, that it is a delegation of congressional authority, you do actually get some input into what it ultimately looks like.
I understand that. In other words, as one of their few friends among the Democratic caucus, you might have a little more influence, a little more access with those who are making the decisions, Mike Froman, the trade representative, than those who voted no.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And that's important consideration for your district, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Who said it was going to be an easy job, right?
That's not why we're here.
No, but it's great having you there, Congressman, and great having you here in studio. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thanks. Real pleasure being here.
And have fun with Joe Biden today.
Oh, you know we will.
You know he'll be in good form.
We'll have stories afterwards.
All right. We'll see you. President Obama's got a busy day today with a news conference at the White House. We'll tell you about it when I come back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
As we move into hour number 3, I got to tell you, I don't care what Chris Christie or Bobby Jindal or Scott Walker or Lindsey Graham or Rick Santorum or Carly Fiorina or Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or any of the rest of them think about the Iran nuclear deal. I care about what Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund thinks about it. He will be here as our guest at the top of the 3rd hour. Then we'll be joined by Congresswoman Jackie Speier, who will tell us all about Hillary Clinton's visit to Capitol Hill yesterday. Hour number 3 coming up on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Stay with us.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the next hour, Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund will be here with his take on the Iran nuclear deal, and then we'll be joined by California Congresswoman Jackie Speier. President Obama has called a news conference today as the launch of his campaign to sell the Iran deal to the American people. That's at 1 o'clock this afternoon in the East Room of the White House. I will be there. Tell you all about it tomorrow. Then the president takes off for, enemy territory. He goes to Durant, Oklahoma, and then on to Oklahoma City, where he spends the night and visits a federal prison tomorrow in Oklahoma. The first time a sitting president has ever gone to a federal prison. I hope they let him out. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
It's the apocalypse. It's Armageddon. It's the end of the world. Maybe you didn't realize that. It's a nuclear deal with Iran. Hey, hello, everybody. That's what the Republican candidates are saying. So good to see you today, Wednesday, July 15. How about it? This is the Bill Press Show here in your local progressive talk radio station. Here with you on Free Speech TV, worldwide on TawkrTV. The big announcement made by President Obama yesterday. He will have a news conference at the White House today to continue to talk about what's in the Iran deal and what's not, why it's important. And Vice President Joe Biden, in about 45 minutes, will be meeting with the entire Democratic caucus of the House of Representatives to get their support for the Iran deal. It's the full court press underway, and as part of that, we welcome to our studio today. I have to tell you, I was on Sirius XM yesterday with our good friend Julie Mason. We were talking about this, and I said, you can check the tape, I said, I don't care what Lindsey Graham, Bobby Jindal, or Chris Christie, or Jeb Bush, or Donald Trump, or Bibi Netanyahu have to say about the Iran deal. I want to know what Joe Cirincione of the Ploughshares Fund says about the deal. That's what I told her yesterday, and we'll find out because Joe is here with us in studio. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you were all over the place yesterday on the media. And
it's a busy day. Big day.
Big day. Very important day, too. Historic day. So the entire team is here today. First time in a long time. Peter Ogburn came back from vacation just to talk about the
I'm
deal.
here. I'm here. I rushed back. I got the phone call at 3 a.m. and here I am.
Elisa Murphy and Jamie Benson here, too, as well. And even Cyprian Bolding came back.
Wow, what a special day.
It brought us all back together. And, you know, Elisa, I meant to mention this, but we missed this yesterday. There was a big national contest yesterday, the skinny dipping day. Did you realize that?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
National Skinny Dipping Day. I missed it.
And Jimmy Fallon told us all about it. Yeah.
You guys, I read that thousands of people across the country went skinny dipping this weekend in an attempt to break the 2009 world record of 13,648 skinny dippers.
All in one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then the sharks were like, cool, they already took the wrappers off these.
North Carolina, the sharks are probably out there. Where are all those skinny dippers? Yeah, ocean's a little cold in some parts of the world to be skinny. So Joe here to take us through step by step the nuclear the deal with Iran, what's good about it, and where maybe is it not so good. And then we'll be joined by Congresswoman Jackie Speier coming up a little bit later in the hour as well. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple other stories making news. So you mentioned Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon is back. You know, he was out for about 2 weeks because of a finger injury. We found out what the finger injury was. So have you ever heard of something called ring avulsion?
No.
Okay. What had happened was Jimmy Fallon was in his apartment. He tripped on the rug and fell, and his wedding ring caught the edge of a table. And he's told his audience, do not Google ring avulsion and look at the photos, because essentially what happens is it strips your finger off of the bone.
I don't want to hear any more of this.
That's all I'm going to say. 9 times out of 10, they say that they have to amputate the finger. And so what happened is that he went into surgery. They had to actually take an artery from his foot to put into his finger to save the finger.
Oh, my God.
And so he's doing his show with this giant thing over his ring finger.
I was wondering what that was. I saw that. He has a big bandage on.
That's what he has, this giant bandage on. That's why, I mean, it's a very serious injury that's weird and uncommon, but a lot of times people will have their ring get caught on like a trailer hitch or something like that, or a door, and sometimes it will just shake.
Ooh.
I'm going to see if I can get my ring off.
Yeah. Moral of the story here is be very careful when taking your ring off.
Wow.
Ready to move on?
Yeah,
please. All right, last night was
I'd rather talk about the Sharks.
Here's something a lot easier to handle. Last night was the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and we saw the American League. The American League took the win again. MVP went to the Angels' Mike Trout. This is the second year in a row that he has won MVP in the All-Star Game. No one has ever done that before, by the way. And by the way, he is 23 years old.
Whoa.
American League All-Stars won 6-3 was the final score, which means that they will have home field advantage in the World Series. So that is not good news for the Nationals, should they make it so far.
No, and Harper went 0 for 3. Our boy Bryce did not show up for the game.
He did go 0 for 3.
Physically, yeah.
I was upset he didn't compete in the home run derby.
Yeah,
it was a bummer. And boy, things are getting pretty expensive in California if you want to buy gas. After 50 consecutive days of price drops on the cost of gas, residents in California have seen the price of gas rise to almost $1 in just about a week. In fact, one Chevron gas station in downtown Los Angeles is charging $5.49 per gallon. Per gallon. Now, while that's obviously a lot higher, on average, gas stations are charging about $4.05 per gallon in LA County, $4.02 in Orange County, and $4.01 in Ventura County. Some consumer groups have asked Governor Jerry Brown to step in to help temper the rise of gas prices in California.
Ooh.
We will see.
Yeah.
But I thought the Iran deal was supposed to drop oil prices.
Right?
What's going on here?
Come on.
I don't know. I just get so tired of the plane to go at the price of gas. Yeah, they all live in Europe. 13 minutes after the hour. I want to see this. This is it. This is the first time I have seen it. This is the first time any of you will have seen it. This is the deal. Only Joe Cirincione would walk around with a copy.
There's a lot to read.
No, there is. Yeah. This is the deal. This is Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, hot off the press. And, Joe, you've had a chance to look at it. I mean, a lot of Americans are wondering, is this a good deal for the world? Is it a good deal for the United States?
This is an historic landmark agreement. It's one of the strongest nonproliferation agreements I've ever seen. We've learned from some of the mistakes of the past, where we've been a little too glib. 4-page agreements, 8-page agreements, 109 pages here. Everything is spelled out. This does it. This agreement, without a doubt, blocks Iran's pathways to a bomb. It just shuts down every single way they could build a bomb, shrinks the program to a fraction of what it is now, and then wraps it in a verification regime so that we can catch them should they try to cheat their way out.
The critics, of course, say that they will cheat. They have always cheated. They've never lived up to any agreement, and that this is not really a verification. It's like managed access. So they can let us in where they want to and keep us out where they want to.
So I believe that some Iranians are going to try and cheat. I believe that. And that's the whole premise of this agreement. It's not based on trust. It's not, you shake hands and, I see the goodness in your soul. No.
Yeah.
This is state-of-the-art, absolutely intrusive, comprehensive monitoring and verification agreement. So that means we're going to have fiber optic seals on all the machinery. This isn't Game of Thrones wax seals on parchment. This is fiber optics where if they tamper with it, it instantaneously sends a signal back to headquarters. Cameras, sensors, audits of everything, inventory controls, tracking the scientists, tracking it. It's all in here. It's all spelled out. 24/7 access to their declared nuclear site. So where they're enriching uranium, where they're making the centrifuges, where they're storing the stuff, where they're mining the uranium. We're going to track it from the time it comes out of the mine till the time it ends as a cylinder. And this managed access, that's for the military sites.
Right.
You want to go there? We can go there. We just got to work out the details, but they can't stop us from going to their military sites.
Which it seems to me I understand that, right? I mean, it's like a U.S. military base. You can't just walk on there no matter who you are.
That's exactly right. No country in the world lets you walk onto the military sites.
Right.
But you have a legitimate reason to inspect them. We do it. Other countries do it. Iran will do it.
Okay, so, and how do you respond to some, we've heard, I'm just kidding over the top, but I'm not kidding. I mean, that's what they said.
Oh, yeah.
Lindsey Graham said, this is a death sentence for Israel. In fact, let's start there. When the first person out of the box, the person that I consider the 16th Republican candidate for president, Benjamin Netanyahu, who says this is a bad deal. Lindsey Graham saying it's a death sentence for Israel. Mike Huckabee saying it's a threat to Israel. That this is that the people who put this together are basically against Israel.
Well, they've clearly discussed this. I don't know if it comes out of what Netanyahu's press conference, then we all get our talking points, or there's a secret meeting someplace. But clearly they've all got the same talking points, and it's to scare the American public that this agreement is not an accord. It doesn't provide security. It's scary. It's threatening to you. This agreement is Munich. Obama is Neville Chamberlain,
appeasement.
Right?
That's what Jeb Bush said yesterday.
Their whole effort is to just scare you, and they're rushing to sort of brand this agreement before Americans have a chance to actually look at it. Before you could even read the morning paper, they're all over the news waves.
So what's the alternative? What's their alternative?
Well, that's the problem. There is no good alternative. If Congress were to kill this deal, there is no better deal. You don't go back to the negotiating table. The negotiating table would break. Our allies won't go with this. You have to understand, this is not something we negotiated by ourselves. Our closest European allies, the conservative governments in Great Britain, the conservative government in France, the conservative government in Germany agreed with this, helped us forge this agreement, plus China and Russia. So if we break it, well, we're the ones out. Iran's agreed to this. Then the whole negotiating process collapses. The sanctions regime collapses. All the restraints on Iran's nuclear program collapse. They can go rush to put centrifuges back in to go. They're off to the races. And that means the chance of military conflict in the region escalates, and that means we have a war like you've never seen before. This is not going to be a pinprick attack if we go to war with Iran. This is a major conflict that will make Iraq and Afghanistan look like warm-up acts.
Right. So the deal says no nuclear weapon for at least 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Production.
No nuclear weapons ever. We should have got that clear.
Ever.
They cannot do any work ever on nuclear weapons, and it's spelled out exactly what you can't do.
All right, so the 10 years is what? Dismantling their
centrifuges, 2/3 of their centrifuges are ripped out under this, and they're allowed to keep operating 5,000. In 10 years, they can start to slowly increase that.
Okay, and then 15 years for research and development.
In 15 years, we've also slashed their supply of uranium gas, the stuff that goes in the centrifuges. They have 10,000 kilograms now. It goes down to 300. So 98% of their stockpile is eliminated. In 15 years, I mean, that is a long time, man.
Right.
In 15 years, they can start to grow that. So this is actually the limit you should think about. For 15 years, the uranium enrichment program is just locked down with limits of all kinds. After that, they can start slowly growing it again.
All right, I wanted to get that clear because then the alternative is that we kill this deal and tomorrow they start building a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now why is that safer for Israel than this deal?
It's absolutely not. I mean, there's no way that this deal...
I mean, these people have it ass backwards.
Well, so let me ask you about this. I wanted to ask you this because I was on the Rachel Maddow show last night.
No, I ask questions.
This is...
All right, go ahead.
Okay, ready? So she was talking about the war and peace issue and the frame and what's going on because that's the essence of it. The people who are upset with this deal want to go to war with Iran.
Totally. John McCain, Lindsey Graham, they want a war.
Seems that way.
They want another war.
Right. You know, the reason they tricked us into the war with Iraq and they never had an exit plan
that happens
because
so
they
well.
never wanted to leave. Their whole plan was to continue it, and they want to continue it with Iran. So they're upset about this. And she was talking about how when John Kerry was nominated, he was a war hero, and they swift-boated him. They went right at his strongest attribute. And I feel that's what they're doing with this agreement. They're swift-boating it. This is an agreement that cuts Iran's nuclear capability, that sets them back, that freezes the program for 15 years. And they're attacking it as paving the way for Iran to get a nuclear bomb. And I want your advice on how you deal with these kind of tactics that go right at the strength of the agreement with lies. Basically,
I think what you do is, first of all, you just brand them as liars, which is what they are, and then do what you just did. What we maybe did together is to point out that, in fact, they, by killing this deal, that their only alternative is war with Iran, is another war in the Middle East against this big power in the Middle East, and that they're inviting war with Iran by rejecting this deal.
So expose them,
exactly.
Say why, and then reveal their alternative plan, which the American people will hate. You couldn't get 1 out of 20 Americans to say, yeah, I want to go to war in Iran.
No, exactly. I mean, I think this is the option. This deal may not be perfect, but is this deal or war with Iran? What do you want?
Yeah.
And then I would just call them out for what they are.
Okay.
With Boehner, starting with Boehner and all the rest of them. That's what they are calling for. Let's go back, to John McCain. Bomb, 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 Iran.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I've heard it from the master. This is it. I got.
All right. But then there is a question which a lot of people raise and about balance of power in the Middle East. And what this means, and maybe there's some good sides and some bad sides of that. Continue here. Great opportunity, unique opportunity to talk about this with Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. We'll be right back. 866-55-PRESS. You want to jump in?
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California coming up next at the half hour, which means we just have a little time left here with Joe Cirincione. Joe, what about, how does this likely to influence the balance of power in the Middle East?
It will bring Iran out from the cold, and that's what upsets Israel and some of the Sunni
and Saudi
Arabia. They want to keep Iran down. They like being the dominant powers in the region. So at the core of the issue of the conflict over this, it's not really their nuclear program. It's about balance in the region and allowing Iran to take a greater role in regional affairs.
And they say we'll give Iran more money because the sanctions are lifted to spend sponsoring terrorism.
Some of it will undoubtedly go to the Revolutionary Guard, Hamas, and Hezbollah, but the bulk of the money, they have a huge economic crisis at home, and all the experts agree that's where the money's going. Domestic needs, unmet after all these decades.
After this deal, what about inside of Iran?
Huge conflict. The hardliners in Iran don't want the deal. And ironically, there's a mirror image of the hardliners here. They both want to kill the deal because they don't want the better relations. They want the autarky. They want Iran isolated from the rest of the world. That's why the Iranian people were celebrating in the streets yesterday, not because they saw this as a great nuclear victory, but they saw it as a ray of hope, a way for them to come out of the cold and a way for them to get the domestic reforms they desperately want.
So the opposition, the democratic opposition, if you will, relative terms, inside of Iran.
The civil rights activists, the human rights activists in Iran, they're all for this deal.
All right. Well, we got to get a copy of it like that, Joe. You have had it. You have read it. You are telling us we should be supporting of this deal.
And you should tell your congressman. Let them know what you think. They're getting hammered by the other side.
And don't let the liars get away with what they're saying. Joe Cirincione, thank you, man.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go. 33 minutes after the hour now here on the Wednesday morning, July 15. It is The Bill Press Show. We are here with you in our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their one and only outspoken, colorful international president, Leo Gerard, leading the United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members. We salute them and thank them for their support of the program. You can find out more about their good work at usw.org. We say we're right here on Capitol Hill. We like being on Capitol Hill because we can snag members of Congress on their way to work in the morning. Congressman Dan Kildee from Michigan was here a little bit earlier. Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut here a little earlier. And now we welcome and recognize a good friend from California, Congresswoman Jackie Speier, California's 14th Congressional District. Congresswoman, good to see you.
Great to be with you.
I mean, it's like the Democratic Caucus. Joe Biden should have come
he
here.
He could have come here.
He could have come here.
Made the case much better than talking to the Democratic Caucus.
We welcome you and thank you again for your word of support for our 10th anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah, how about that? So it's going to be a whole year of celebration. I want you to know that.
I agree with you.
But I do love your hair.
I was going to say, I agree with you. He does have pretty good hair, right?
Yes, he does.
Donald Trump, that's my competition. Is that it?
No, thank God that's not your competition.
It's a pretty low bar.
All right, so the caucus is a place to go. Joe Biden today, Hillary Clinton yesterday.
Right.
How did that go? How was she received?
She was extremely well received, standing ovations. She was very strong on Iran, made very clear what her message is going to be to the American people. And I the mantra of the American people deserve a raise is a powerful one. It says it all.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, she's really on that. That was a hard issue, but she had to talk about Iran because obviously, the news of the day. She obviously is in a contested Democratic primary. Did she pick up any friends and supporters yesterday?
Oh, I'm sure she did. I mean, no one kind of said I was for X and now I'm for you, but I'm sure she's 100 Democratic of the caucus. So she's
Are you
short.
one of them?
Well, yes, I am. I don't know that if I'm on the list, but I'm going to do an event for her in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's interesting. 3 out of 3 members who have come in this morning have all said they've already endorsed or ready to endorse.
Right.
I think the other 2 already have, Hillary Clinton for the nominee, who looks like she's going to be the nominee.
Oh, I don't think there's any. Good luck to Bernie Sanders for doing what he has done because, I mean, the American Democratic Party is not of one voice. And we're hearing from a whole lot of voices who recognize that Bernie Sanders has a lot to say. And I think it's great. I like to see see this disheveled older gentleman being able to really appeal to millennials. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah. No,
don't we wish we all could?
Right, no. I hear it all the time. And, he and this economic populism, which is sort of now the message of the day, Americans need a raise, is something he's been saying for 40 years or whatever. Right. So with the vice president coming in today, now let's start first and get your take on this Iran deal, which the president announced yesterday from the White House. Months of tough negotiations. Not a perfect deal, but is it one that, so far as you've been able to get familiar with it, with what's in the deal, one that you can support?
I'm very certain that I can support it. I'm putting one caveat. I want to read the whole document first. But let's begin by saying...
By the way, you just saw Joe Cirincione leaving.
Yes.
He has the entire document.
Well, I have the document in my office. I just haven't had time to read it. I mean, it's, it's that thick.
109 pages, yeah.
So it's important to start back to the Bush administration when the first efforts were undertaken to negotiate with Iran. This has become a very partisan ploy, but when you really recognize that George W. Bush was engaged in trying to do a deal with Iran. And moving forward, the amount of time it's taken and the resolve, frankly, that Secretary Kerry and the president have had is very remarkable. 15 years. Mm-hmm. No, 2/3 of their centrifuges gone, and a commitment for 15 years. That is, I think, astonishing. I mean, there are no pathways to nuclear proliferation moving forward for the next period of time. There's the appropriate ability to investigate, to monitor. The IAEA is going to be on the ground. In many cases, they're going to only be required to give 2 hours notice in order to go into military bases, into production facilities, into uranium mines. I mean, that is remarkable. And for people to say we should not be there on the ground investigating and monitoring are just foolish.
And you wonder, all these people who are against it, what is their alternative?
Well, that's the point. I mean, you would rather retain sanctions. Now, sanctions have been effective, but sanctions is not a long-term foreign policy. And what was happening, although we weren't talking about it, the support for sanctions by the EU countries was eroding. Mm-hmm. And we do very little trade with Iran. So in terms of the impact that it would have if we retained our sanctions and the EU countries dismissed them, would have been, I think, very problematic for us.
Sure. I mean, people do, and the president stressed this yesterday, people do tend to forget, this is not just the U.S. and Iran. This is the U.S. and Germany and France and the UK and China and Russia that agreed to this. So again, those who say, but they want to scrap it. Let's just go back to the bargaining table. That assumes that all those partners of ours would say,
and they
all right.
And they won't.
Right.
They won't.
Yeah, start from scratch. How do you respond to the comments came from Lindsey Graham, who said this was a death sentence for Israel. Mike Huckabee said it's a direct attack on Israel. But Prime Minister Netanyahu himself said, this is a bad deal we never should have made. How is this a threat to Israel? Do you see it as that? And how do you respond to those who say it is?
Well, irrespective of their comments, I mean, the apocalyptic commentary by the Republicans is totally irresponsible. I mean, it shows you where we have come as a Congress, as a country, that we are so separated in terms of any issue. It doesn't matter if he was, the best thing since milk was discovered, they'd find a way to say it was toxic. I mean, it doesn't.
Apocalyptic is a word for it because they've really been. It's Armageddon. Apocalypse is a word that Mike Huckabee used, right?
Right.
Yeah, to describe this.
So it is not apocalyptic. Now, Netanyahu, we could have predicted he would have said that, but I think for the status of Israel moving forward, this is actually going to protect them. It is not going to injure them. Injuring them is the likelihood of not doing this, allowing them to continue to proliferate and put Israel at greater risk.
Right. So now the president has a news conference today. This is part of the selling this to the American people. The vice president coming to the Democratic caucus today as part of the effort to make sure to sell this to the Democratic members of the House and the Senate. It's early, I know, but what's your read? Do you think they'll get the support in the House and Senate among Democrats?
Well, there's a fair number of undecideds, and there are a fair number of members that will bleed for some of the groups out there that are mouthpieces for President Netanyahu. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out. But the president's also made it very clear that he's going to veto it. And I think he will have a veto-proof vote.
You need 2/3 vote in the House and in the Senate. The opposition would.
Right.
To override it, yeah. And again, what would that mean? It seems to me the alternative, what that would mean is basically a green light for Iran to go ahead and build a nuclear weapon.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing that we have to be concerned about, though, is what is this going? I mean, the one concern I do have is what is this going to mean for the rest of the Middle East in terms of their interest in wanting to build nuclear warheads as a result of seeing, Iran being in a position to be held off, but not permanently.
Mm-hmm. And what would it mean if we were to walk away from it and allow Iran? Then other countries would say, well, if Iran can, then we can too, starting with Saudi Arabia. Yeah. No, the whole balance of power question. It's a historic agreement and one of the most important issues certainly facing the Congress and the American people right now. In studio with us, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from California. We've got that and lots more to talk about. And your calls always welcome at 866-55-PRESS. You don't often get a chance to throw a question to a member of Congress or a comment. Here's your chance. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
At 13 minutes before the top of the hour on this Wednesday, July 15, in studio with us, Congresswoman Jackie Speier from the 14th Congressional District, Northern California. Congresswoman, seeing a fellow Californian here in studio. Don't get to do that very much. I've got to ask you, how are the water wars going in California?
Well, they're serious. I mean, in our home, first of all the lawn is gone. We have red buckets in all of the showers so we can take the water from turning on, to get the water hot.
While you're waiting for it to warm up, right?
I've turned off the sprinkler system. Everything is dying. But it really shows you the ability of Americans, and in this case Californians in particular, to heed the call. You drive down the street and you look at lawns and they're all yellow or brown.
Really?
And when
So
you
people
see, they're really complying. When you see a green lawn, you look with such disdain.
Yeah. I'm surprised there aren't pickets there. Well, I'm surprised there's not Jerry Brown right there.
And you learn interesting
that's
things.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
That by watering early in the morning, you save 25 gallons of water. Just by doing that one step,
before the sun comes up, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't evaporate.
Because the last time I was in the state, I was in Beverly Hills in March, I guess, and I saw no sign of conservation, and people were running the sprinklers and everything, and I was thinking, come on, people, right? Didn't you hear what the governor said? So it's good to hear that.
Yeah, there was a dramatic drop last month of some 29%, I think it was.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on another issue facing Congress, the Pentagon announcing this week, and an issue you've been involved in, the Pentagon announcing this week that they're going to make it possible for transgender people to serve openly in the military. It's amazing to me how there was no controversy about this. There's no big long fight over don't ask, don't tell. The Pentagon just announced it.
Well, first of all, it's important to point out that there are 15,000 transgender members of the military. right now.
Right now? Really?
Yes. And there's hundreds of thousands of veterans who are transgender. I actually got into the National Defense Authorization Act in this cycle with no opposition from the Republicans, an amendment that provided their DD 214, which is their discharge document. If they become transgender, they want to be able to have their discharge document reflect their status. And so that was accepted and will be part of the NDAA this year. We're going to be introducing legislation in my office that will respond to the other issues. It's not just lifting the ban. I mean, it's making sure they get the proper health care. Benefits, that they also, right now, if you are a trans male, you have to show up on the day to get your wages every 2 weeks in your dress uniform, which means you've got to put on a skirt again to go get your pay. So all those kinds of issues have got to be dealt with appropriately.
But I think it's a sign of how far we've come, right? That this did not become a great big political football.
Yes.
Right.
Well, thank the millennials. I mean, I think they have so changed our perspective on the issue of marriage equality, LGBT community issues. And I'm very optimistic about how different and how positive this country is going to become as they start to take charge.
Yeah, that's 100% true. That this next generation that's coming up, it's not even an issue for them. It's not even something that they're just accepting and moving on with. It's just not even an issue.
And gun safety laws, I think we're going to see the ability to really address that issue with this next generation, much more so than we've been successful
Well,
at doing.
it does make you wonder then about the long-term policies of the Republican Party, doesn't it? Because on all these issues, they still hold fast to anti-same-sex marriage, right? Anti-immigration reform, anti-doing anything about climate change. And they're either issues that millennials don't care about anymore or totally accept and are on the other side of.
Right.
So who's their appeal to these days?
Well, hopefully very few.
Yeah, right. But don't you think that explains why some of them haven't come out stronger against Donald Trump? Because they know that the base that they've got left agrees with Donald Trump. A lot of them do, sadly.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the libertarian segment will continue to be more supportive of Republicans than Democrats.
There are even Republicans in the House who still refuse to accept the fact that it's time for the Confederate flag to go.
That's right. It was astonishing. The Interior appropriation bill was taken up. We were wrapping it up, and then there was an amendment slipped to the Republican manager on the floor, to rescind an amendment that had been passed earlier because so many Republican members were offended that an amendment had been accepted by one of our Democratic members that would prevent the Confederate flag to be placed at national cemeteries. And they thought that was a huge affront. So they tried to slip that in, and then all hell broke loose. And the appropriations process has come to a screeching halt as a result.
Which means no interior bill or no other?
So there will be no other appropriations bills taken up. So this regular order mantra that Speaker Boehner was talking about, it's going to be continuing resolution. Sequestration will be an issue. Shutting down the government will be an issue at the end of the year. So, again, it shows our dysfunctionality.
It does make one wonder, and you don't have to comment unless you don't want to, but it does make one wonder who's in charge on the Republican side of the House. I mean, this can't be holding everything up because of the Confederate flag. Can't be something that John Boehner wants.
I don't think it is something that John Boehner wants, but it shows you we've got huge issues in this country that need to be addressed.
Yeah,
and they would much rather focus on the Confederate flag or making sure surplus guns, handguns in the military can be sold. I mean, those are the kinds of issues. Here we have a National Defense Authorization Act, $500 billion, and we had our first conference committee meeting yesterday. One of the members actually talked about his little pet project. That's the most important thing in the NDAA.
Right. There you go. I don't know. You're a stronger person for me to put up with this on a daily basis, Congresswoman. But we're glad you're there fighting the good fight for all of us, and deeply appreciate you coming in again this morning.
It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. I'll keep the hair going.
Yeah.
Jackie Speier from California. I'll be right back and wrap things up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Well, we've heard it from Congressman Dan Kildee, Congressman Jim Himes, and Congresswoman Jackie Speier, and Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshare Fund. This nuclear deal with Iran is a good deal for the United States. It's worth celebrating whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Have a good Wednesday, folks, and come back and see us again tomorrow. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.